a really interesting year in muni bonds so far, really the best fixed income asset you can have in terms of performance. Will munis continue to outperform other fixed income instruments for the rest of this year?
I believe they will. Remember, part of the outperformance came from the underperformance of last year, so we're sort of recovering some of that, but we still have a ways to go to fully recover what we lost from the outflows last year. But when you look at tax exempts versus other taxables, the taxable equivalent yields are so compelling in this higher tax environment that we're in. The 35% rate under the sort of worst case scenario went as high as 45%. So the increase is pretty dramatic, and the benefit from the tax exemption is extraordinary.
Is that the biggest driver, or are there other factors right now?
It is probably the biggest driver, but the reality is state and local governments are doing quite well. Despite what you hear about Detroit and Puerto Rico, revenues at the state level are at their all-time highs. We are seeing more upgrades than downgrades. We're actually seeing higher tax revenues from an income tax, property tax, user fee, capital gains perspective. So from a financial perspective, we're seeing increasing quality across the board.
Well, since you brought up Detroit and Puerto Rico, you have owned those debts. You've owned sewer bonds, for instance, in Detroit. I believe you still own them. High-yield munis have outperformed high-yield corporates. They're the best performer within municipal bonds. Does that high-yield performance continue, and is there still value in some of these issues at this point, or has the best money been made?
I think there's probably the same amount of value in high-yield munis that there is in general munis, and that is that they're tax exempt and they're still yielding in excess of treasuries in most parts of the yield curve, as well as on a taxable equivalent yield basis more than corporates. But with so much money flowing into high-yield munis, you've seen some spread compression, and there is less available to take advantage of, given the fact that you have high yield up 10+% year to date.